Hi, and welcome to the Unhinged History Podcast, the podcast where a couple of degenerates meet up every week and regurgitate history stories that we have decided to compulsively not hit Wikipedia too much with and try to find substantiating articles. I'm your host, Theresa Potratz, and that other host is
Angie. I'm laughing because one of my sources did not include Wikipedia until the very last second because I needed to look like I needed to understand something. So now one of my sources is Wikipedia.
I mean, this checks.
Right?
Whatever. The number of times I'll go through and like sample previous podcast episodes that you and I have done, and I've said the phrase like, did this source come from a bathroom wall? And you kind of go, I mean, kinda. This one's Reddit.
Hey, listen. Reddit might be the underbelly of the internet, but sometimes there's gems in there.
Reddit will never be as bad as 4chan.
I can safely say I've never been there, and I couldn't tell you whether I agree with you or not. And since I can't, then I do.
I mean, I think at one point my grandfather made a passing comment about 4chan as in like knowledge of having like possessing knowledge of 4chan. And I kind of like looked at him like, what have I got here? And like to the point
what am
where
I working with?
Right, to the point where like when he passed, my aunt and cousins and sister and I were all in his office where he had the computer, and she's looking around at stuff and she goes, I think we need to destroy the computer. Like after we get everything taken care of, like bills and everything like that wise, I know Gramps would sometimes look at stuff on the dark web. I don't think we need to know what happened there. And I'm not even saying we wipe the hard drive. I'm saying we do that and then smash it with a hammer.
Hey, at least you have somebody lined up in your family that's gonna do the work for you.
I mean, you're right.
I told Ian that I want it to be Ethan for me. And he just laughed. Because I want to get one more gotcha.
Dude, okay, like you say this, and I really want to start keeping a false diary that talks about like an incredible arrest record.
Yes.
Like every time I travel for work, include entries that suggest I went to, different countries.
Yes.
And document food and like spy drops and things like that. And then, but just
be
do
casual.
it. Right.
Yeah.
And then like just make sure that she sees it occasionally so she knows that it exists, but never gets to read it because it's a diary. And then when I pass, goes, oh, what's this? And goes, my mother ran a cartel.
Really?
Like that's the kind of stuff I
yes.
want, like I want to figure out a way to tie in Escobar's cocaine hippos and like the whole nine.
You absolutely should. Absolutely should. I'll help you work it out.
Okay.
And then like yeah, we'll do it. You can make me an accomplice.
This feels worthy.
I'm here for it. It'll be amazing.
This really needs to be a thing now. This is going to become my new mission in life. Thank you for the new hyperfixation. I appreciate you.
You are welcome. I'm here to help.
So aside from coming up with ways to assist my daughter's paying for her next therapist's house.
For buying their beach house in the Hamptons.
Right. What have you been up to?
We just did we had the state shoot last weekend, so we were super busy. Owen's sick, so he's not a happy camper, so I'm sad about that. But school's out, so we're like entering the calm.
Yeah.
We're not there yet, but we're entering, and that makes me really happy.
We have one more day of school because of snow days.
Oh,
I know, right? Like her teacher is a Californian, and so her teacher's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize snow days were a possibility. And so I scheduled a vacation to start the first weekday of spring break or summer break. And then snow days happen and I can't reschedule. So she will have a substitute on her last day because
you know what? Yeah, Owen had that last year. The whole last week. Poor baby. Is it's just going to be a play day anyway.
Right. Like it's going to hit the teacher more than it's going to hit the kids. The kids don't care. They're what are they going to do? Carry home the last of the bits of arts that were tacked to the wall? Like there's nothing for them there.
Yeah, they're done.
It's
We've been
literally
done
just a
since
day.
March.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just a day for the school to collect more revenue per student from the government. And I'm okay with
Yeah.
that because our schools do need support. And but do I imagine any lifelong learning? No.
No. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
my senior year English teacher, first day of English class that year, she looks at us and she just goes, I'll be honest, there's not a damn thing I'm going to teach you this year. If you don't know it already, you ain't going to. Now, that said, we're still going to cover the curriculum, but I have zero
Well,
expectations on you.
I love her.
I mean, she just didn't lie from start to finish. You know what? Here's what you got. Here's where we're going. My expectations are so low.
This is what we're working with. Let's do
I mean, and
it.
that said, the stuff she taught that year, I am still showing friends and coworkers on like how to organize your life, how to think through decisions, how to actually make a tough choice. Because she spent our time doing that, which I touched on more last week than I have any sentence structure or literary themes or things like that.
Hey, sometimes you learn life from your teachers more than you learn the curriculum. I remember telling my senior English teacher was also my drama teacher
Yeah, that
all
happens.
4 years,
Yep.
right? And I was her TA. Like we spent so much time in her care over those 4 years. And I remember thinking, like, yes, she taught us the curriculum well, but what did she teach? Like she taught us how to be humans, like
Mm-hmm.
how to be good humans. And for that, like there's not enough thank yous. There's not enough like appreciation you can give back for the life experience that she gave you just by existing
Right.
and showing up. So I get it. I totally get it. Teachers are awesome and they're worth their weight in gold for the most part. I'm sure there's some doozies out there.
You know, kiddo's third grade teacher, second, no, second grade, kiddo's second grade teacher. That was a missed opportunity for me to pull her out of that class. But now I understand if she's had a good time with every teacher and every teacher has said the same thing, and then one teacher stands out, it's like, why is that teacher the outlier? Because everybody else loves her and everybody else has no problem with her.
You know what? Owen had the exact same thing for the first day of school of his second grade year. And the following day, I went to speak with her because he was coming home telling me like this is what she said, but this is what she did, and it just did not agree with it at all. And I walk in and I'm like, yeah, I have a couple questions. My son told me that this is gonna sound really stupid, but my son told me he can't have his water bottle at his desk when all of his other teachers have allowed this, and he needs it because he has this is really silly, but he has reactive airway disease, which is like the precursor to asthma.
Okay.
So he does not have asthma and he really doesn't have a problem. Like he lives his life like a normal kid. Like he
Sure.
plays all the sports, he does all the things, but his lungs react to everything with coughing.
Mm,
So it doesn't matter. Like he doesn't feel good today, he will cough. Like that's just how he operates, right? So he's always had his water bottle with him for help with that because it soothes it.
right.
And he's thirsty and he wants to drink his water. So like let's let the kid drink his water. And the teacher was like, well, he's very disrespectful. He's all over the place. He doesn't be quiet in class. I'm like, you've had him for one day. And she keeps talking about him. And I'm sitting here thinking, that does not sound all of these things she's saying do not sound like my child
Right.
at all. And then it like this goes on for several minutes. And then Owen and one of his little playmates come in and he turns to me and he says something and then he goes to his desk and she goes, oh, that's your child. And I
Oh,
was like,
geez.
yeah. And she goes, oh no, he's fine, he can have his water bottle wherever he wants it. He's so quiet, he's so well behaved, he's great at listening, great at answering the questions, he keeps everyone around him in line. I thought you were talking about someone else. God.
Mm,
So someone else's mom is also going to have that conversation.
but that other mom's going to have earned it. And she's probably going to be like, this checks. We've heard this before.
This sounds right. And I'm over here going, none of his other teachers have ever said anything but he is an absolute pleasure to have in class. Like, so what's the problem with you? Like, the problem is she just had the wrong students.
Right. Yeah.
These are things. What are you going to do?
So I know you had said that you have a shorter story than mine when we were chatting and passing.
Yes.
My story doesn't end. I don't pick ones that end on a, oh my gosh, what a great uplifting story. I really love this. Like, I did do the one about the sword and the bombing of Bricking, Oregon. Like, so that one did end on a really cool note. This one ends on I have to go write some letters. I'm going to need to practice some self-care. I need to light a candle and have a cup of tea.
So you want me to go last?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're going to need it. You need this. Like,
okay.
I don't think it matters who went first last time, because we just need to safeguard against this so people don't end this and just go, I got to go stare at a wall and rethink my life choices and what I do with my free time.
My God, man, I'm dying to know what you learned about.
Okay.
Do you need a hug first?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
But
I've taken care of myself all week. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Like, I've been reading the story going, okay, hold up, but I need an alternative source. And then this morning I was like, I need to take my sources and knit them together. Like, these are things.
What is happening here?
Okay. So I'm going to tell you about Prince Dejatch Alemayehu.
Okay.
All right.
This is a name I don't know.
And to talk about him, I have to start and tell you about the Battle of Magdala.
Okay.
So my sources are Smithsonian Magazine.
Oh, one of my favorites.
Buckingham Palace refuses to repatriate remains of Ethiopian prince by Christopher Parker. BritishBattles.com has an entry on the Battle of Magdala. I have largely ignored this one just because of how scathing its tone is, and I will kind of touch on that a little bit. I also pulled an article on the Abyssinia expedition from UK's National Army Museum website. And another article from the Smithsonian Magazine, Looted Magdala Treasures Returned to Ethiopia After 150 Years by Olivia Gershon.
Colonialism.
Buckle up, kids. We're going to start to hate the systems in place.
As we didn't already.
I mean, prepare for ear. If you're feeling anything more than ennui after this, congratulations. You've got better mental health than I do.
Do I need a snack? Should I go get a snack first?
I mean, after this, when I'm done, if you just need to go take a double shot of whiskey, I totally understand it.
I can 100% see the look on Ian's face when I just walk out.
Just pull the bottle and just
like, wow, starting early, huh? It's not even noon.
Hey, you haven't been drinking all day unless you start by 9.
Are you even doing it right?
Right. Okay, so we're going back to 1855.
Okay.
Abyssinia, now in modern-day Ethiopia, has been ruled by Tewodros II, who is sometimes called Theodore, but Theodore is only referred to in any writing by the British.
Figures.
So this will be the only time I call him Theodore.
Okay.
He is a Coptic Christian ruler. He's established his rule through war, defeating his rivals, but has continued to face many internal rebellions.
Yeah, as you do.
Right. In 1862, he asks the British government for an alliance and for assistance. He's asking for the latest military weapons, for some tactical experts to help him. He's, after all, a Christian ruler, and his wars are with his mostly Muslim neighbor. So he's thinking this should work, from one Christian ruler to another.
You should want to help me.
Right. Like, help me defend Christendom is really what he's saying. His requests went unanswered. The following year, enraged by the Foreign Office's failure to reply, he seizes a number of European hostages. Among them was the British consul, Captain Charles Cameron, who was kept in chains for over 2 years. Some reports say he also took missionaries too. The hostages and the condition of their captivity are said to vary greatly, as the unstable Tewodros II tended to treat them alternately with kindness and cruelty according to his mood.
So mind games. We're playing mind games.
Well, so again, but these are all from Western sources, right? For all I know, he was keeping them as well as he could and then faced massive attacks from his Muslim neighbors and had to change their living conditions, which may have been not as conducive. We don't know, right? There's so much we don't know that I'm having to read between the lines.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the British sources that I am telling you that I'm largely ignoring are talking about basically that he was insane.
Okay.
But given their source material, I'm not paying them much heed.
Okay.
Okay.
That works.
All right. But I'll at least call out that I'm ignoring them. It's like when you point out that person in the room staring at you, like, you, buddy, I'm ignoring you.
Stop it.
And you just right now, you're dead to me. And then you just, boom.
And then you go on with life.
Right. Yeah. And they kind of go, ooh, man, she didn't leave anything to the imagination. So that's what I'm doing, right? Okay. Well. So Captain Cameron, captive that he is, wrote the British press describing what's happening. This and the fact that British women and children were amongst the hostages.
Oh, no.
He created a public outcry that forced the British into a response.
Okay.
All right. So he created a PR nightmare. Internal diplomatic negotiations and numerous gifts failed to secure their release. By June of 1867, in the face of mounting public indignation, the British reluctantly concluded that military intervention was necessary.
Okay.
Or as a response was planned, it was made clear that this was not simply a mission of conquest. Once the hostages were freed and Tewodros II punished, the military force was to withdraw. There was never any intention, according to the British, of adding Abyssinia to the empire.
Okay.
Instead of sending soldiers from Britain, a force was withdrawn from Bengal and the Bombay armies. They were usually used to maintain British control in India, and therefore was made up of both British regiments serving in India and the locally recruited Indian soldiers. The army was commanded by Lieutenant. They always put like an F in there, and it's really weird to me. So Lieutenant General Sir Robert.
Lieutenant.
Yeah, but it's like there's no F in there. There's 0 Fs. Just like the 0 Fs that I get.
I was just going to say, like, the 0 Fs we have.
Sir Robert Napier, a royal engineer, was the first engineer that ever led and commanded an expedition. So, I mean, he's at least making history there. So Napier's army was loaded onto ships in Bombay, and it contained 13,000 soldiers that were sent along with 40,000 animals, including 40 elephants trained to pull big artillery guns.
Okay.
So this just felt like overkill from start to finish.
Yeah.
You're not planning to take over, but you're bringing 40,000 animals and 44 war elephants.
You know, maybe they are a firm believer of making a statement right off the get, you know?
You're probably not wrong. The troops sailed from Bombay, and then on December 21st, 1867, they crossed the Arabian Sea before navigating to the Red Sea to the Gulf of Zula, which is now in modern Bay of Trea, which is really right on the outskirts of Ethiopia. And they established a base camp from where they could march inland. Now, they had to do all of this because the Suez Canal wasn't done yet. So they have to take this meandering route. Okay. So Napier's ability to overcome the logistical challenges that faced the soldiers was essential in the campaign. From very beginning, supplies had to be moved all the way from India and then landed at Zula on the coast. And so once they've been consolidated there, the British forces would have to cross 400 miles of mountain terrain in his good grief, Theresa Marie. So they'd have to cross 400 miles of mountainous terrain in the inhospitable weather conditions to reach Tewodros II's fortress at Magdala. As an engineer.
So I'm sorry, I'm just having this image. If I was him, I'd be like, oh, they're still 400 miles away. I'll wait.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like, I don't know enough about the elephants and the terrain that they come from in India, but I don't imagine elephants looking at a mountain and going, yeah, I got this.
Climb that. Yeah, neither do I, which is why I'm picturing our friend like looking, out over the distance and seeing them miles and miles away, being like, well, we'll just wait here.
I know.
Put on the tea. Like,
I mean, let's see how many of them make it, I suppose.
we'll determine whether or not we're going to fight about this later.
Right.
That's totally what I'm seeing.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you're not necessarily wrong. I mean, I feel like his position feels heavily defensible at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to reach Magdala, Napier used many technical innovations to keep the army moving and supplied, including he had a telegraph and distillation plants to turn seawater to fresh water. He
Okay.
even built a harbor with piers and warehouses to unload and store the supplies and put in 20 miles of railway line that were laid, complete with locomotives that were bought from India. These are
Okay.
big boats. If you're bringing a whole ass train,
And 40,000 animals, yeah.
like, oh gosh, okay.
You brought Noah's Ark and a train.
This is the equivalent of me trying to build a plan. He might be an engineer, but he might have over engineered this. Like, this just feels like overkill.
A little bit.
Okay. So the Royal Engineers built a road to the interior of the country to help the army move even quicker. As speed was a factor, the campaign needed to be complete before the torrential June rains, made already challenging by the terrain that was viewed as utterly impassable. The
Okay.
advance begins January 26th and was combined with diplomatic efforts as the British secured agreements with Tewodros II's enemies to cross the territory without encountering armed opposition. And this would protect the lines of communication and supply. Can I just say that these enemies are also the ones that he wrote them about, being like, hey, my Muslim neighbors are kind of the ones giving me grief right now. Can we, from one ruler to another, kind of work together? And then the army comes in and goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
I was
But
just
my
thinking the enemies. Yeah.
my friend previously wrote me about you, but now we've switched everything.
Changing sides. Do the
I mean,
thing.
like, all of this could have been averted with a mere response to a letter.
I mean, but come on. You have the opportunity to either A, mail out a letter, or B, show up with 40 war elephants.
Against another, like, gosh, like,
I want war
thoughts.
elephants.
Okay, fine. Okay, I'm gonna keep going then.
Sorry.
So,
That's just how I feel. Be flashy, do the thing.
all right, I mean, as you wish. Napier's diplomacy ensured that the British were able to march freely across northern Abyssinia, but it still took over 2 months to reach Magdala. Tewodros II's capital is built on top of a volcanic plug that towers over the local landscape. Like, this thing is just massive. He built his place in the most defensible position. But
Good on him.
if you're going to be ruler and you're going to try to take over things and rule with an iron fist and war, like this checks. Like, he's consistent.
Villain building his castle in a volcano, as you do.
I mean, you say villain. I'm
Well,
unsure.
I'm just saying, I'm thinking like, yeah, because I'm unsure about him being the villain too, but I'm thinking like, all the movies, all the bad guys always got his,
Oh yeah, the volcanic
yeah, yeah,
layer, the whole nine. Okay.
sharks.
With laser beams. But before the British could assault it, they needed to cross the plateau of Argo. I practiced so many words. This was not one of the words I practiced. Orogi, the plateau of Orogi. Sure. Tewodros II's army, including 30 British, Tewodros II's army, including 30 artillery pieces, was encamped around it in defensive positions, which is what the British would have to battle through. So he's got guns pointed down at the roads, going right to his place, like, come and get it, boys. So this sounds great. On April 10th, Tewodros II orders his army to attack, but rather than hold their positions in an effort to seize the initiative, they were ill-equipped, and the British and Indian soldiers drove them back into Magdala. The battle lasts just 90 minutes, and more than 500 Abyssinians were killed and thousands more wounded. The British suffered a mere handful of injuries.
Wow.
And in one of the things I found, like the dragoons, the ones like when you think of Outlander. What is his name? The bad guy, the main bad guy from the early books.
Captain Jack. Captain
Yes,
Jack.
Captain Blackjack.
Yeah. I can't think of his last name.
I can't either, but it's the Claire's last name at the beginning of the books.
Randall.
Captain Jack Randall. Oh my gosh, we did it together. Go team.
Yay!
Go team. Okay. So he was a dragoon. So imagine like tons of them, right? Like, I saw the red uniform and I was like, you jackass. Like brought up all of the feelings about Captain Jack Randall. Okay.
Yep. Way to ruin an entire group of people.
You know, like I said, I'm team. I don't know who's the right person in this.
I feel like it's probably a mixture of neither.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. So either way, the Abyssinians get their rear ends handed to them. And the following day, the British move in to attack Magdala itself. Tewodros II releases all of his European hostages over the next 2 days and then murders the others that he's holding, but he refuses to surrender. And then on April 13th, the British attacked the fortress, and artillery bombardment covered the advance up the narrow route to the entrance. And once there, the British rushed both the outer and inner gates while being under fire. As the British move into the fortress, they discover the body of Tewodros II just inside the second gate. But rather than be captured, he committed suicide with a pistol that had been a gift from Queen Victoria.
Oh.
Bringing it full circle. So it's not like he hasn't had letters answered prior, right? They just ignored this missive. Hold that in your brain.
Hey, it's there.
Okay. As news of his death spread, all resistance from the defenders came to an end. Napier's Anglo-Indian army had won, and the campaign had cost them just 18 wounded and 2 killed. There's no accurate record of how many Abyssinian casualties were sustained.
Of course.
It took 15 elephants and around 200 mules to carry all the wealth that the British looted from Magdala.
That's what they brought the elephants for.
Yeah.
I wanted war
because
elephants.
apparently they didn't need all of that artillery that the elephants were supposedly carrying if they just left it there.
Yeah.
Good catch. And later, many of the stolen objects were auctioned off to raise, quote, prize money, unquote, for British troops.
Okay, so we're paying their bills this way?
Yay, colonialism! Among the stolen goods, Prince Dejatch Alemayehu and his mother, Empress Tewodros Wube. But don't worry about the Empress because she dies en route to England.
Oh.
When he arrived in the United Kingdom, Prince Dejatch Alemayehu is newly orphaned 6-year-old. He grew up in the care of the British Army officer who sent him to boarding schools and introduced him to members of high society, including the royal family. Queen Victoria.
No way. Okay.
What?
I think I'm making a connection, but I'm not sure yet.
Okay. Queen Victoria took an interest in Alemayehu and arranged for him to study at elite schools before he's sent to a military training academy in Sandhurst. He left after less than a year for the English city of Leeds, where he died of pleurisy, which is an inflammation in the lining surrounding his lungs. He died at 18 in 1879. Victoria wrote in her diary, "Very grieved and shocked to hear by telegram that good Alemayehu has passed away this morning. It is too sad, all alone in a strange country, without a single person or relative belonging to him."
This could have been avoided if you'd have wrote a letter back.
Yeah, or maybe didn't send 40 war elephants and however many other animals to haul back. Like, if you just took what you needed to actually do just the job and not loot and pillage the entire way home.
Would they be British if they didn't loot and pillage, though?
Hold, please. He's buried in the catacombs of St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. And Jeremiah Gersha, an expert in looting of human remains at the University College Dublin, who's originally from California, says that there is no doubt.
Never mind.
He's a professor.
I love it.
Who ends up being an expert in looting of human remains. So
We all have the
After
same.
a couple of years of this podcast, I feel like you and I both will be able to claim that title.
I was gonna say we all have a thing.
Right? Like, so he hyperfixates just on something different. He makes the statement that there is no doubt that Alemayehu was stolen. Quote, he was kidnapped, he said. You have a minor coming to another country as an orphan after his mother dies, and then he himself dies at 18. Something should feel wrong about that. He was looted as well, like all of the other curios and treasures that were taken. Unquote.
Yeah, I
The
agree.
British, yeah, no, go ahead. No, interrupt because this
I
just
I so totally agree with that. That yes.
Mhm. The
Yeah.
British obsession with Africa at a time created a huge market for the stolen goods. This curiosity extended beyond the ceremony shields and religious items to actually living Black African people.
I've heard of this.
Quote, you wouldn't kidnap a white child. Victoria's not going to end up with a child from the London suburb Cannon Town. There had to be a racial element, the foreignness for this prince to have come to be at the palace, Gershus said. I feel as if I knew him, says Abebek Kassa, an Ethiopian royal descendant to Jabat, to Marriott, and Cecilia Macaulay of BBC News. He was dislocated from Ethiopia, from Africa, from the land of Black people, and remained there as if he had no home. So this story surfaced when a friend of mine, Natasha, sent me this article about England not returning the prince's remains, despite Prince Alemayehu's family asking for them for 150 years, and not after 150 years, but consistently during that time.
Like we have been sending you text messages and you have been leaving us unread for 150 years.
Just like
Okay.
you left Tewodros II's letter on red.
In the mailbox.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Cecile Minas, a descendant of the Abyssinian royal family and relative of Alemayehu, told BBC, we want his remains back as a family and as Ethiopians because that is not the country he was born in.
And nor was it the country he chose to be in.
Yep. But the palace said this week, because this article was published back in May of this year, of 2023, that it just wasn't possible and it would disturb the other human remains buried nearby.
We dig stuff up all the time.
Bum, bum, bum. Like, it's just going to be hard. And, like, I just don't want to. So I've decided no.
Can you reconvene with me on this after trooping the color? Because I feel like then we might be able to help you.
I mean, I don't know what I have to tell you, but the kingdom just isn't what it used to be. We can't possibly muster up the manpower. That would take like 3 people.
Mm.
So
That would take like 3 people. I love you so much. I don't know why that hit me after the fact so hard.
I just like being an asshole.
You're my favorite. Oh
Here's
God.
another fun quote. The Dean and Canons of Windsor are very sensitive to the need to honor the memory of Prince Alemayehu, Buckingham Palace said in a statement sent to BBC News on Tuesday. However, they have been advised that it is very unlikely that it would be possible to exhume the human remains without disturbing the resting place of a substantial numbers of others in the vicinity, the statement said. The Ethiopian embassy is the Ethiopian embassy in London is welcome to keep visiting the grave to pay respects, the statement adds. But historians said the palace should do more to take responsibility for its past.
You stole a person. Give it back.
Multiple people.
Yes, give
Him
them
and his
back.
mom, the freaking empress. It's not like they took that and said, you know what? We said we weren't going to intervene or add you to the Commonwealth. So the empress and
Yeah.
the heir can stay and maintain their country.
Did they ever like, okay, because you said the Empress died on the way to England.
Yeah.
D- was she returned? Or was she just buried where she died?
Unsure. No, very, very little mention other than like, well, she didn't make it.
Oh, okay. That
But
that
again,
that
English
that tracks.
sources. So,
Yeah,
it's
that
not like
tracks.
anybody had some skin in the game there. It wasn't their empress. What did they care?
That checks.
But I have a couple more paragraphs of sadness.
Mm,
I know.
okay.
Quote, this is such an emotional issue because it reminds everyone of Alemayehu's plight. A child struck in a foreign land, never allowed to go home, said Andrew Heavens, the author of a new book on Alemayehu and the British reign in Abyssinia titled The Prince and the Plunder.
It's a good title.
Emotionally, right? Most people who get to know Alemayehu's story feel his remains should be returned. He made it so clear before he died he wanted to go back, Heavens said. Making matters worse, this news broke in 2023, but in 2021, we have articles about Abyssinian items that were stolen during that conflict getting repatriated back to Ethiopia.
Okay. So we can return some stuff.
You say that, but it's never done out of altruism.
That's true. Okay.
The nonprofits had to raise the money to buy the items and then send them back to Ethiopia.
Gotcha. That checks.
Yep.
That super checks.
Yep. And in
Because
the
we
article,
can't just give our stuff back.
no, we can't just go, you know what? My ancestors made a blunder. I'm going to step up and go, honestly, this is just sitting on a shelf collecting dust. Like, this means very little to me. I'm just going to do the right thing.
Yeah, I'm like, whatever.
Not,
This
but
is
it's
a topic that drives me insane. Yeah,
the
I
British are
totally
like,
agree.
my parent, my forefathers did a really bad thing. I want to make it right. To the tune of this number
$2
on this
million.
check written to me.
Yeah.
Like, no, just do right. You literally gained nothing by it. It's just taking up space in your freaking attic.
And even if it like there's no it makes me absolutely crazy because there's no even if it was sitting in a museum that brought a ton of tourism and that brought a ton of revenue
Create a
to
replica.
well, not only could you create a replica, but you could then in turn use that revenue to filter back to the people with which the item is from.
Right.
Right?
Like,
So like even if you were refusing to give said item back, which is totally the inappropriate thing to do, but even if you were refusing that, there are ways you could still the people of that region could benefit without
right.
whatever. Just give people stuff back.
I mean, yeah, like, and don't collect body parts.
Put that thing back where it came from, or so help me.
Like, if at any point you look around and you go, I think that's a human remain. No, absolutely not.
Put it back. Why'd you bring it home?
Okay, so before I finish up on my really bad note, at one point, kiddo was like 3. We went to a park and she's looking around a flower bed, doing her little thing, exploring, nature in quotation marks. And then she pulls up a skull and she
Oh,
goes, Mommy, look, I think it's a rabbit. And I look and I was like, well, you're already touching it. So telling you to put it down won't really matter because those germs are already on your hand.
it's yours now.
And I really think she was right about it, just knowing it was a rabbit skull because boy, those teeth were accurate for what I would think of a rabbit.
Yeah. Yeah,
And then
okay.
then we came home and cleaned it very thoroughly. However, the internet told me was the best way to clean a skull, which is something that is in my search history.
That was something you didn't think you were gonna ever Google, huh?
I mean, not outside of maybe a creative writing exercise, never for an application.
These are things.
Being a parent, you're going to learn to clean
Super
poo out
weird.
of super weird orifices, and you're also going to
And
Google.
skulls.
Yeah, why not?
You're gonna Google things you didn't even know were imaginable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is fill in the blank poisonous?
Yes. What is blank?
Does does the color blank in blank
Should
mean anything serious?
I call a doctor?
Yeah. Hmm.
Hmm. Do
All
you
right.
still have it?
The rabbit skull. I honestly, she has a box of random nature things
Oh,
that could be like a replica of a um, Tyrannosaurus Rex tooth or a shark jaw, or like, so we just kind of put it in the box.
so she's practicing her colonial heritage.
Yeah.
I
Or
love her.
archaeology, like,
Yeah, or paleontology. I'm here
yeah,
for it. Keep your box of weird stuff.
that's just what it is. Or box of nature stuff. Could be some starfish that were dried out, a couple sand dollars,
I
or
love that.
bones that she just finds, you know.
It's as you do,
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to end on this note because I mean this actually like checked, and I was just fantastic. In the article about the items that were repatriated back to Ethiopia, Alula Pankhurst, a member of Ethiopia's National Heritage Restitution Committee, says retaining artifacts, notably human remains such as those of Prince Alemayehu in Windsor Chapel, or sacred objects such as the Holy Talbot Arks of the Covenant in the British Museum, is becoming increasingly anachronistic, irrelevant, and embarrassing. And that is the story of Prince Dejatch Alemayehu.
I'm sad he hasn't made it home yet.
Right?
Oh, yeah, I'll write an angry letter.
Dear British Museum,
Give
open the
that
gates.
back.
And see, the British Museum has a lot of the other stuff. They don't have his bones. That goes straight to Charles III.
I know a guy.
Right?
Yeah. Dang it. Theresa!
Like I said, don't let me end on this note because everybody will turn off their things and just stare at the wall and go, well, now I'm angry about things I didn't know I was going to be angry about today.
Yeah, that is exactly what's happened. I am angry about something I didn't plan on being angry
But
about.
nobody ate a puppy.
Things could be worse.
Things are always have the ability to be worse when I'm telling a story.
I really commend you for it, to be honest.
It's
If
going to
I'm
be hard to
being,
top myself next time.
going to be hard to top yourself. So far, you've eaten puppies, and
I myself have not. I have eaten
that's true.
horse. I have
That's
eaten
true.
whale
Why would you eat a whale?
because it was on the menu and it was already like there. I mean, I felt bad that it was there, but I mean,
Did it taste
look,
like chicken?
no, it didn't. It didn't have much of a taste, and that made me feel really bad about ordering it because at least didn't, like I was like, this didn't fill a niche.
Didn't check any boxes.
Right. Now I have to answer for the fact that I did it. The horse was delicious, which is not a common statement to say in the house because my child is adoring of horses.
I could see the look on her little face as her ear is pressed up against the office door right now.
Right. Well, I mean, and people have said, you ate a horse. And I said, yeah, it was on my 24th birthday. It was on the menu and it was my birthday and I'd always wanted a pony. So,
Did what I could,
right. Like, and I made that comment because it was in Japan and I was eating with a group of my students and a couple coworkers. And I said that, and the students looked at me like, I don't get it. And then the native English speakers looked at me and howled with laughter because they recognized the entitled, I want a pony for my birthday trope.
And so I got one, dang it.
It took me 24 years on this planet, but I managed it. It was only a bite.
Only a bite.
With garlic and some shiso. Delicious. 10 out of 10. Would do again.
I was gonna say, would do again. Yeah, I'm not gonna let you end on that sad note of not repatriating people's bones. I'm going to tell you the story of Penelope Barker. Have you heard of this name?
No.
Oh, I'm so excited. Because here's where my my patriotic side comes out, I suppose. My sources are Edenton Tea Party, An American First, the North Carolina History Project. Penelope Barker, the National Women's History Museum at womenshistory.org. History of Edenton Chowan Partnerships. And Penelope Barker and the Edenton Tea Party, founder of theday.com. And then the cursory Wikipedia article.
This checks.
Written on the bathroom wall. Okay. So the story is not totally wild. There's no like real wow. Well, there's wow moments, but there's nothing like really outlandish in my story. So for that, I'm sorry. This is not a hysterical story.
Then why are we here?
Because I have to tell you the most amazing thing ever. Well, it's got a special place in my heart. That's why.
It's not the most amazing thing ever, but it has a special place in my heart. Like, what?
I know
What?
that was really that was conflicting. I'm sorry. It's not like this is not the story of the Oregon bombings. You know?
Okay.
Like it doesn't have a ginormous wow factor, but everything about it makes me really happy.
So this is one of those, it's not an incredible bouquet that you would see in the lobby of a very exquisite hotel. It is an incredible flower in the middle of a meadow that you took a photo of.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes. That is a perfect description.
That is what I'm here for. But that is why you also won't let me end on a bad note.
Also, yes, in fact. And part of the reason I wanted to share this story is because it's a portion of Revolutionary history that is definitely not taught. Like I literally just learned about it and was like, why was this not shared in our history classes? Like, this is so fun.
Was this inspired? Have you already been watching Outlander, the new season? Okay.
No.
Because I know that they're heading into the Revolutionary War, and the fact that I did any work yesterday proves that I am a loyal employee, because I should have just called in dead and binged the entire thing.
Should have just done it. No, but it is funny that you say that because there is a moment in this story that I was like, oh, that's very Outlandery.
Oh, go on.
But not in the way you think. Okay, so anyway. To begin with, it's only I just need to give you a little backstory. Edenton, North Carolina is the town that this whole thing takes place. It was founded in 1712. It was actually founded just a few years before New Orleans.
Okay.
So, to give you some context of age, it has long been an occupied area both by European descent and native indigenous cultures. Edenton boasts some of the oldest continually used homes and public buildings in the country and is a hotbed for historical activity and love. Here's my lesser known American Revolutionary story. Penelope Barker is born in Edenton in 1728, one of three daughters of Samuel Paget, who was a doctor and a farmer, and Elizabeth Blount, who herself was the daughter of James Blount, who was a wealthy politician and planter in the area. When Penelope was just a teen, both her father and her older sister died, like one right after the other. And so Penelope decides she's going to help raise her older sister's children. So as she's helping raise her older sister's children, she ends up marrying her widower. So she's married to her sister's, her deceased sister's
Thank you
brother.
for that, because I was like, she married her own widower? Wait a minute. So thank you.
The passed away sister's husband.
Okay, I thought he was remarrying a corpse for a second. I got scared.
No. She marries the widower, John Hodgson, and she helps to raise the children that her sister and him had.
Her niece and nephew.
While also bearing two sons of her own. Sadly, though, he would also die only 2 years later, which is an absolute bummer. But that's okay, because when she was 23 in 1751, she marries a wealthy planter named James Craven. Unfortunately, he would also be dead by 1755, making her twice a widow before being 30 years old. Can you imagine that? Right? So she's got this slew of children, twice a widow. Already life has got to be, like, this woman has to be so special for just the things that she does.
I mean, I'm just imagining like how did I recognize life expectancy is low and that no tomorrow is for certain and all of that nonsense. But how did she keep children alive and keep losing adults? Like, it's not her fault,
So,
but
it's funny that you say that, because by the time I got to her third husband, I was like, I wonder.
yeah, like,
um,
are we just not recording deaths of children or?
so one of the sources that I read said that by the time she was, for lack of a better word, more elderly, most of her children had already died, whether it was because of the war or because of disease or whatever.
Okay.
There were not many surviving children.
And just
Um,
because I'm into too much true crime, are the husbands dying the same way? Like, do they all strangely die of a sickness after eating?
okay, literally the exact same thought went through my mind, but I did not dig too deep into that because I don't think that's the case. And I also don't want that to be the case. So I chose to just be like, I don't want to know how the husbands died. We're
Fair.
just, we're just gonna, but 2 years later, she would marry a third time to a man called Thomas Barker, who was 16 years older and an attorney. She would have 3 children with him, but sadly, none of them would survive in infancy.
Wow. So she's up
Yeah.
to like what, 5 kids that stay alive at this point?
Um,
I mean, 'cause I feel like we're at the chalkboard and we keep
2,
erasing and adding.
3. Yeah, I think at this point there's 5 living. I know for certain that one of her daughters does marry and has children of her own.
Okay.
So there is at least a descendancy,
Okay.
but I don't think any of the other children did. I could be wrong on that. If someone knows, I would love to learn that. Um, However, this is where the real story starts. Thomas in 1761 is sent to England as an agent and treasurer of the North Carolina colony. He would remain in England for 17 years, mostly because of the Revolution and the British blockade. This left Penelope to manage the affairs of the home and the estate, and she handled them like a boss lady. By
Mm,
the time she married him, she was considered one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest woman in all of North Carolina. Um,
dang.
she had just found, not only did she come from a family that had money, but she found like every person she married, she inherited from them. And
Okay.
so she was just accumulating wealth after wealth after wealth, which is why I thought, oh, I wonder if she's a Black Widow.
I mean, at some point there's financial gain, you know.
Yeah. But anyway, this seemed to work well for them. He was gone for the 17 years, and she was running the joint. But we are living in pre-revolutionary America at the
Right.
time, right? So there's like a lot of tension. There's a lot of um anger towards the British taxation without representation. We want to just talk to people and help them understand our plight. Like, we have our own products we can use from here, but we want to keep buying your products. But this, the whole thing, right? Like
Right.
all the pre-American Revolutionary stuff that we already know. So, like, just a little bit north, like 638 miles, in that little town of Boston on December 16th of 1773, roughly 50 men disguised as natives board 3 ships
Yeah,
and
yeah.
dump
They
all the
they
tea in the harbor, right?
cosplay, they get
Yep.
drunk, they cosplay, and
Yep. They
then they
yep.
go and
Yep.
throw a bunch of stuff overboard.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you've heard of this, the Boston Tea Party.
Yeah, I mean, I've
um
made my model of a ship
yeah,
and
we're
that was,
yeah.
5th grade. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're well aware of the LARPing that took place. So
I will for now refer to the Boston Tea Party as the LARPing.
you're welcome. The Great LARPing of 1773.
The drunken
Um,
LARPers.
this was a very pleasing act to many of the inhabitants of North Carolina. By 1774, North Carolina passes a non-importation resolve to protest British trade regulations. On October 25th of 1774, Penelope invited close to 50 of her closest lady friends to the home of Elizabeth King, and they all had a bit of a tea party themselves. They signed a resolution that supported the boycott of British goods, such as tea, material, clothing, things like that.
Okay.
Supposedly, while doing this, they also drank a homemade tea made of lavender herbs and mulberry leaves.
Delightful.
Right? This event would later be called the Edenton Tea Party. I have a portion of the petition. Would you like me to read it?
You can, but here's where I'm going to just say this is a group of women writing on a sheet of paper almost 200 years before we get the vote.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I have to read it.
I mean, you have to, but at the same point, I'm like, the snark in me says, a group of people whose voices we have declared don't matter and declared that the Constitution wasn't even written for, got together and wrote something down. This is going to be largely ignored by everybody that can grow enough chin hair.
You would think that. It was very much not.
Oh, okay. I mean, I love it when I'm wrong. Please, go on.
So, the quote, the provincial deputies of North Carolina, having resolved not to drink any more tea nor wear any more British cloth, many ladies of this province have determined to give memorable proof of their patriotism and have accordingly entered into the following honorable and spirited association. I send it to you to show your fair countrywomen how zealously and faithfully American ladies follow the laudable example of their husbands, and what opposition your matchless ministers may expect to receive from the people thus fairly united against them. And then it goes on to say, we cannot be indifferent on any occasion that appears nearly to affect the peace and happiness of our country. And it is a duty which we owe not only to our near and dear connections, but to ourselves. Okay.
Okay. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Yes. Founderoftheday.com says this about the petition, and I absolutely love this part. So, Founder of the Day says this about the petition. Quote, the Edenton Tea Party sent their petition to England where it was printed in the papers. In her accompanying letter, Barker even went so far as to criticize the men of Boston for wearing disguises, noting that the women of Edenton were brave enough to sign their own names.
You know, anytime you can call a group of patriots cowards. I mean, first off, I feel like coward is an underused insult nowadays.
Oh, it's one of my favorites, and you're absolutely right. Definitely not used enough. Absolutely. And she had no problem calling them out. Like, you not only wore a disguise, you couldn't even be brave enough to show your face. Oh, right. We signed our own names, my good sir. So this shocked both the royalist colonists and the British alike. London magazines would call the women of Edenton uncontrollable. The North Carolina History Project has a wonderful note about the feelings. Quote, while visiting London, North Carolina royalist Arthur Iredell was vexed after hearing the news of the Tea Party. In a letter to his brother, he sardonically asks, pray, are you becoming patriotic? Is there a female Congress at Edenton too?
By the way, vexed. Another word, underused. We need to bring that back.
Yes,
we need to vex them cowards.
That word. Love that word. It goes on to say, truth is many times disguised as humor, as evidenced by the rest of Iredell's letter. If the ladies who have ever since the Amazonian era been esteemed the most formidable enemies, if they, I say, should attack us, the most fatal consequences is to be dreaded. So dexterous in the handling of a dart, each wound they give is mortal. The more we try to conquer them, the more we are conquered.
Can we just have that quote played over and over whenever a group of men decide to legislate against?
Things they shouldn't.
Yeah, it's like, you know, these women, they kind of band together and they're mean.
And they know what they're doing.
Each blow's mortal. Like, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Fear me.
Indeed, in my petticoats. It goes on to say that while the ladies didn't dump anything in the harbor, their act was, quote, nothing less than a bold display of patriotism and love of liberty.
That's why their tea didn't contain tea leaves, because they were practicing what they were preaching.
Yeah, and they made from what I read, they made their tea like from local sources. Like it was all yeah,
What a strange thing to just make your own things and not just rely on paying for everything.
weird, right?
Yeah.
So here's my little Outlander moment. This is an anecdote that came from Wikipedia. Being informed by a servant that some British soldiers were taking her carriage horses from her stable, she snatched her husband's sword from the wall, went out, and with a single blow severed the reins in the officer's hands and drove her horses back into the stables. The British officer declared that for such an exhibition of bravery, she should be allowed to keep her horses, and she was never again molested afterward.
Dang.
Um, Mrs. Baker would continue her boycott all throughout the war, and the actions of the Edenton ladies would inspire women all over the colonies to boycott and help the rebellion. There are a lot of fun stories of our sisters doing what they could to help their cause, from wearing homespun fabrics to selling tea that was liberated from an East India Company port in Charleston, South Carolina, to help fund the rebellion.
I love anytime you hear liberated like that. It's like, we stole, but we're going to use some marketing spin.
Yes, and I chose to word it that way because my source said that the um the the tea was kept in a like a in a port, like it was housed. It wasn't on
Mm.
the ship. It was like housed in the port, but it had been there for so long because of the whole taxation problem. They couldn't sell it. The East India Company couldn't sell it. So my assumption is if they can't sell it, it was stolen, right? Um they would then go on to sell it to other patriots to help fund the war, which I think is absolutely chef's kiss.
I mean, that's just a straight up leaf out of the British textbook.
Right? We can do
We're going to
this.
steal a bunch of stuff and then we're going to sell it to raise money for our own army.
We are plotting against you, right?
Right. Like, so this is just the Americans going, hey, I know this trick.
I read about this once. The ladies of the Edenton Tea Party are of the most important historical significance, for they performed the first act of women's political demonstration in American history. Mrs. Penelope Barker is an activist we should all strive to understand, especially in a time when women were given so little freedom. Her peaceful actions broke molds and made waves all the way to the doorsteps of King George and for all the American people. When her husband did finally return, they built what would be known as the Barker House, which now serves as the welcome center for Edenton. And she outlived yet another husband, but died herself in 1796. They are buried in a small graveyard at Hayes Plantation. Okay, can I very quickly tell you why this story means so much to me?
Yes.
Okay, so several years ago, I asked my husband what the town he was from was like. And he said, oh, you would not like Sneeds. Sneeds has exactly one post office and one stoplight. Let me find somewhere else that would be interesting. So
Now,
he's
hold,
going
hold
up
on.
the map.
Sneeds where?
Sneeds is on the Florida-Georgia line.
Okay.
And that's where he spent a portion of his childhood. And I've always been curious about it. So I was like, hey, can you Google Earth it? Like, I want to see
Right.
what it looks like, right? And he was like, oh, no, that's flat. It's boring. You won't like it. So he's like scrolling up the map and he goes, I actually think that you would probably really like North Carolina. And he finds this little town called Edenton. So this is like 5 or 6 years ago. And from that point on, I have been absolutely obsessed with this little city. It is 300 years of American history. Like the cannons from the American Revolution are still there. Like
Mm.
they line the harbor. The Barker House, which is Penelope Barker's house, is the visitor center now, but for a short time, very briefly, it was for sale for like a stupid amount of money before it went back into the trust.
Stupid low amount of money or stupid high?
Stupid high amount of money. And
Okay.
this house is immaculate. I have pictures of it. It's gorgeous. And I told Ian, if I ever win the lottery, I'm buying this house. However,
I'm
it
kicking
was
the visitor
like
center out and
it's gonna be my house. However, I was like, okay, maybe not that one. That house is like too front and center. Like it's the whole town can see it, right? So then I thought another house came on the market and it's called the Aethol Plantation. It is 6 miles away from the Hayes Plantation where Penelope Barker was buried.
mm,
The Aethol Plantation came on the market. It was originally on the market for $1 million. By the time it sold for 450,000.
what?
Mm-hmm. This house is the house of my dreams. Now, the connection to this house and Penelope Barker is that during the last hurricane that came through and actually like wreaked a little havoc in the North
Yeah.
Carolina area, because this area doesn't often get hit, but a few years ago it did. The road got knocked out from the Aethol Plantation to the Hayes Plantation. The only way you could get from the Aethol anywhere else was to
Mm,
go through the back roads of the Hayes Plantation. So I think at one point they were probably one piece of property
okay.
that had been split in two.
Yeah.
But like all these little things connect together, and then to read about her and to read this story, I was like, I know all these houses. Like I've been obsessed with these houses. I've been obsessed with this town this whole time. I remember her name,
Wow.
but not make the connection that this woman was like this badass founding lady who was not about to just let the men go have all the fun. So there's my story of Penelope Barker, the first female activist in American history.
I love her.
Right? Do you want to see some pictures of her?
Do, 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 do,
I have
do.
a picture of her.
Let me a nibble share before you tell me, I mean, you can't. And that
Ah,
does remind me, I have pictures of Alemayehu
oh
because
yeah, I want to see them.
he was the sweetest. I only have like, okay, let me share my screen real quick.
Let me
This
get you
pretty
back.
much is the only photo I could find.
Oh,
I mean, that's pretty much right after he was orphaned.
which one is the captain that looked after him? Do you know?
That's his guardian, the guy who Captain
Oh,
Speedy.
okay. It looks like he was at least good to him. And I mean, that's hard to tell one way or another, but
Right.
Alemayehu? Alemayehu,
Yeah.
am I saying that right?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so, but it's AlemayehU.
What a sweet boy. Oh my goodness.
I know.
That
Humans
makes me
suck.
so mad. Put him back.
Yeah.
So the first house you see with the four
Wow.
columns, that's the Barker House, which is the visitor center that they built
By four
after
columns,
the
you mean
war.
four chimneys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, this is the front entrance to it.
Oh my
They
gosh.
host a masquerade ball there every year.
They have to. That's what that house was designed for.
Exactly. It's such a big grand house. Here's the Hayes Plantation where she was buried, which I'm just absolutely obsessed with. But here's my favorite right here, the
But you
AFL
know,
Plantation.
any of those homes, like there is just so much cleaning that you would have to do.
So much dusting.
That's
And
it.
here's our girl,
Well done. Well
right?
done.
I love her dress. It's so pretty. It's like a pinky silk. That's all I can think of it. Is it totally it reminds me of I can't think of her name right now. I want to say it's Josephine, but Jamie's aunt.
Yes. Who has the plantation in the South?
Yeah,
Oh,
her
what is?
gown. That's
Yeah.
that's totally as soon as I saw that, I was like, "Oh, I think I've seen that dress before." Yeah. So that's my girl. That's my house.
You say that.
And
It's
here's
like,
her
I
house.
don't want anything like that. I want a cute little tiny house in the back. Something that's like super easy to clean. 30 minutes, done. Not like,
Well,
I've got to go clean the back 40 bedrooms.
so the AFL house only has 5 bedrooms. If I remember right. I could be wrong. It's a bed and breakfast now. You can go stay at it. I could be wrong on the number of bedrooms it has, but the kitchen, I'm obsessed with the kitchen and I'm obsessed with the grounds and the big Greek columns. I'm such a sucker for plantation houses. So there you have it.
Wow.
Yeah. Penelope Barker,
Well, thank you for
the
sharing and
badass of
thank you for
Edenton.
lifting me out of the funk of body thieves.
Hey, you're welcome. Just remember that we will conquer. As my friend said. I'm trying to remember his exact wording. The more they try to conquer them, the more we are conquered. Get it,
Highlight that.
fellas.
Where are we? Because
That
you said that, and I'm like, I'm
is.
trying to find because
Oh, I was
that
trying to
quote
find
didn't
in the wording
necessarily
right here.
make sense to me.
That's the one where he's saying like, so dexterous
Wait,
is the handling of a dart. Right here. Oh, you
highlight
can't
it.
see my finger. I'm realizing now that you
Yeah,
can't see my finger.
I hate to tell you this, but we are not in the same space.
Sorry. Can you see that?
Yes, so dexterous the handling of a dart that each wound they give is mortal. The more we try to conquer them, the more we are conquered. Okay.
Yes.
The more because I didn't hear the we are conquered. I heard they are conquered. And I was like, the more we try to conquer them, the more they are conquered. Yeah, of course, that cause and effect.
No. The more men try to hold the ladies down, the more they are conquered. The men are conquered,
That is
is
an
what he has to
incredible
say.
quote. Very
Right?
truly.
I love it. Absolutely love it. And I think she's amazing. So she's my girl. Penelope Barker. And her name's Penelope. Could we be any cuter?
That's
I
true.
mean, really,
I
right?
mean, because, Penny is always an adorable shortened version.
Right? It's so cute. And when I was writing her name, like I thought if I can stay up late enough, I'm just gonna watch all of Bridgerton in one go. Because Pen. I was like,
Yeah,
oh, her name's Penelope. I need to hear the name over and over again. But I didn't. I
I'm all
went to
for
bed.
that.
I went to bed like a responsible adult.
Why are we stuck making decisions like responsible adults when we really just want to do the fun things?
As my girl with the cool outfit in that TikTok I sent you yesterday. Dumb as hell.
Aren't we?
Stupid.
I know.
Anyway,
Well, if you've enjoyed us being dumb as hell and you want to share our dumb as hellness with your friends, you can rate, review, subscribe. You can also email us. We like emails. I like hearing from you just because that is who we are and we like
we're
sharing
needy.
those stories. And we are at unhingedhistorypod@gmail.com.
Super needy. We're super needy.
And we're super needy. And on that
Yeah.
note, goodbye.
Okay, bye.